You need to look up and celebrate everything that you've achieved. And if you remain tunnel visioned, you will miss opportunities that can get you closer to where you want to be.
Dr. Tiffany Chen is a periodontist and founder of the Cusp Collective, a social enterprise dedicated to empowering women in dentistry. After an intense 3 years of full-time study and training, and I might add, with a newborn, throughout her dental career, Tiffany's arranged her life and finances on various occasions to explore everywhere from Antarctica to the Arctic Circle, both ends, including a lap around Australia. She now resides on the Gold Coast with her family whilst keeping an eye on the next travel destination. As a lifelong learner, Tiffany always returns to mindfulness and connection when navigating her challenges. The insights gained through her life and career thus far has compelled her to advocate for gender parity, leading to the establishment of the Cusp Collective. If you could join me in welcoming Tiffany.
Thank you for having me here today and for the very kind invitation from Caroline ADA Victoria Branch to speak to you about overcoming professional challenges. Now today I don't want to spend our time together going over the nitty-gritty about stress management or mental well-being exercises, because these are things we can all easily Google for ourselves. We know we need to sleep better, drink more water. We know we need to do cardio, maybe some meditative exercises. So today, I want to talk about something a little bigger than that. I want to talk about something a little more abstract to grasp, but something that if you are willing to do the work, will be more transformative and will stay with you in a sustainable way. Today, I want to talk about seizing the opportunities that get you closer to the success you envision. This photo is actually my desktop. It brings me great joy every time I see it. This photo was taken, it's a drone shot from Waterfall Bay, north of Tasman National Park. And you can see just a little bit here, there's a little white vehicle there. That's our 5-ton truck that we lived in as we did a lap around Australia. I had actually just moved in with my boyfriend at the time. So from the Gold Coast to Sydney, I had just unpacked everything. New city, looking for a new job, looking for a new barista. And my boyfriend at the time, one day, 2 months after I unpacked, said, "Hey, I bought this truck and I'd like for us to move in it in 2 months' time and travel the world." I was thinking, could have told me that before I finished unpacking, but sure, let's do it. So as John very generously introduced me, I am Tiffany Chen. I live on the Gold Coast. We have a beautiful home with a wonderful view, beautiful husband, wrong jersey color, but that's okay. And I spend 2 days in clinical working on periodontist. So I work in a periodontal clinic, amazing boss, wonderful support staff. Couldn't ask for more. I get to take my boy traveling with me and exploring new things, take him to work with me, even though he actually preferred playing with the wombat poo to looking at the wombats, but I will forgive him, he's only 3. But it wasn't always rosy. So of course, like everyone here, I assume, we have all had our fair share of difficulties and stressful times in clinic. I have personally experienced toxic workplaces, being underpaid, not being paid at all, having workplace bullying, and most recently, of course, as John mentioned, 3 years of fresh hell. To be fair, I did choose to do it. The opportunity came up and I seized it because I couldn't say no. I knew that if I went through it on the other side, I had greater choice in my career and in how I wanted to live. My idea was to work more, earn less. Work less, earn more. Work less, earn more. That was a concept that my husband, who's a Sydney-sider, couldn't really understand. So this was our house in my last year of the degree. We actually were flooded from the Christmas, New Year's holiday. So we were hotel hopping and rental hopping for 8 months in my last year of the degree, but I passed my exams, so that's all good. Looking at this desk though, that was my desk at uni, and looking at that scene takes me back to a pivotal moment in my degree. So I was sitting there with a cape and my travel pumping gear because my boy was 3 months old, and I had organized to have that all set up because the university had directed me to pump breast milk in the dental clinic's public disabled toilets. There was no other option. So I had all that set up, and luckily my colleagues were fine. They hear whirring away in the office and they all ignore it and it's all good. So this one afternoon I was sitting there pumping away, and I was stressed, I was exhausted, I was overwhelmed with the amount of work we needed to do, all the research papers I needed to remember, and the year that person decided to do a certain study. And my colleague behind me, he was in my year, he was very kind, and he, very benign, like every day he asked, "How was your morning?" Because it was a lunch break. He said, "How was your morning?" And I told him about how I had an encounter with our professor. He had mentioned a product that he advised one of the students to use, and I couldn't hear him. So he said it again, I couldn't hear him, and I didn't want to ask again. So I said, "Oh, what does this product do?" Thinking that I could decipher what it was, because I felt embarrassed having to keep asking, "Well, I can't hear you." And he looks at me, he said, "You need to study more." And as I recounted that, it's all coming back to me. As I recounted that to my colleague, it hit me and I burst into tears. Why was that? Because I was exhausted, I was spread thin. I did nothing but study. I didn't see my friends, I barely saw my family. We all had very little guidance from the university about how we were going to go about studying, what was expected of us. And so all I did was study, and here he was telling me to study more. My colleagues were very kind and generous, and they came over and consoled me. But I knew I couldn't carry on like that. This was 8 months into the first year of my degree, and I couldn't do that for another 2 years and a bit. And so right then and there, I decided that I was never going to let them make me feel that way again. So I went ahead and did something about it. Now, you don't need to be pumping breast milk or studying full-time to experience stress or overwhelm. Dentistry is a very high-stress, demanding profession. We have so many sources of stress within our work, as well as being fully lived humans. We have lots of sources of stress outside of our work. So how do we go about addressing it and moving to a place with greater ease so that our work stress is not being brought home and our home stress is not affecting how we perform in clinic? This is where I began. I began with being very clear on my why. I began with shifting my perspective, and I continued to empower myself by filling the gaps in my knowledge in non-technical skills. So being clear on your why means that you don't miss out on seeing opportunities that get you closer to where you want to be, closer to your vision of success. Opportunities don't always just hand themselves on a plate to you. Sometimes you have to look for them. Sometimes you have to create your own. Shifting your perspective is the easiest tool to use to get through tough times. And for me, I believe that if you were to upskill and master your non-technical skills, that will give you the freedom to shape a career that you are happy with, that you don't dread Mondays about, that you don't hang out for the holidays, because you can actually go into work every day, enjoy your career, go home, enjoy your families. Because I truly believe this will transform you. It's hard work though, it's not effortless. And I am an affirmations person, so this quote hit me hard. If you are willing to live a few years like most people won't, you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And everyone here in this room is already on their way because you've done so much work already to be where you are. Now let's shape that to fit you even better. So what is your why? What are your values, your non-negotiables? What are your priorities? When was the last time you actually sat down and reevaluated and really thought about why you do what you do, what drives you every day? What does success actually mean to you? Is it a bigger house, a bigger car? Is it better holidays, more time with your family? And if so, why is that? What are those reasons that really drive those choices? For me, my non-negotiable is, I jumped ahead. For me, my success is freedom. So the freedom to choose if I want to work 2 days, if I want to work 6 days, build an empire, I have the freedom to shape my reality and the freedom to live authentically. One of the easiest ways, and it's quite simple and probably quite bougie, is I have the freedom to choose what groceries I want to buy. I don't need to buy the home brand if I didn't want to. I didn't have to even think about it. And we are very privileged to be able to do that, but we've worked hard to get here to be able to make that choice. This is another photo from our lap around Australia. We're crossing the Nullarbor here. I also want to point out that when you make these choices, it's not luck. A lot of times when I take time off to go travel, people say, oh, you're so lucky. But these are very intentional choices. It's not luck. And when you make these choices, you give up other things. Keeping in mind that this truck is, you've got 2 square meters of space. Me, my husband, our Grudel, or my husband now, we survived that time together. And so there's not a lot of space to move around. He couldn't even stand up straight. Also, when you're in a caravan, there's no sewage. So we have a septic tank that we have to deal with. As a dentist, I wouldn't have had the secure income at the time. I did locum work. We also happened to coincide with COVID at that time. So my husband was dealing with his travel business, having to work out how to survive COVID. And this was also when I studied the master's in orofacial pain. So we made our choice to be there. We were able to shape our reality for that time where it was actually quite a difficult time, but we were able to do all this work and work through our stresses on the beach every day. Now, my non-negotiable is my boy. For anyone who's ever breastfed, you know, or knows the biology of things, milk doesn't come unless you have oxytocin. And the university environment is not supportive of oxytocin. So these are photos that my husband would send me in my first year so that I could bring home some milk for the baby, except for that one, he was a bit older and I brought him in just for fun. So because he was my why, my non-negotiable, my whole reason for going through all that was so I could have more time with him in the long run, was so I could spend my years with him. I worked my hours of uni around him. I was always the last one into uni. I was not late. I was 15 minutes before the start time. But most of my colleagues were half an hour, 45 minutes before. They had lots of work to do. They were trying to build their cases, build up their skills. But I had to put that on the back burner and just get through those years. I left early so that I could be with him. If I didn't leave early, I wouldn't see him because it's his bedtime. So on those days, I saw him an hour, 1 waking hour on the days of uni, and I miss out on treatment planning, more complex cases. But because it was my why, it kept me on track. I made those choices. I stood my ground with the university, and I said this is what I needed to do. Now, having a strong why also allows you to shift your perspective. Again, anyone with kids will know that everyone tells you that the days are long and the years are short. So I decided to reframe my perspective of time through the degree by matching it to his growth, which goes really fast. That was when I first started, and here he is, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. All of a sudden, he didn't need trainer wheels anymore. And so that's how time flew for me. At the same time, it shifted my perspective in a way that it reminded me there was life outside of uni. So we spend so much of our waking hours at work. Any drama at work can really draw you in and make you feel like this is it. This is all happening. It's all right here. But if we're able to take a step back and look at the big picture and remember that we have a whole life outside of this environment, then that really helps us get through the tough times too. Remember, though, that your values and definitions of success can change with time. Once upon a time, for me, it was to take a year off, travel the world, walk across borders, and do risky things like watch an active volcano or jump out of a plane, jump off a bridge, and go on multi-day hikes. These were high-altitude multi-day hikes and took me to the most spectacular places that I would probably never get to go to again unless I decided to walk 10 days out into the middle of nowhere. I have beta thalassemia, so that means on every hemoglobin there are 4 oxygen chains and I'm missing one of them. At high altitude, there is also less oxygen. So I had an oximeter, so it was all fine, no problems there. But I learned that as I puffed one step at a time up the mountains, over the passes, down another one, these were lessons that I took with me, and they were very important, and they helped me every day. So when you're having a hard time, you make your big plans, and then you'd go one step at a time. That's how you get through, well, that's how I get through things, is one step at a time. And that's literally what we did a lot of times. We were looking at our own footsteps going up the mountain. But look up occasionally, because you need to look up and appreciate how far you've come. You need to look up and celebrate everything that you've achieved. And if you remain tunnel visioned, you will miss opportunities that can get you closer to where you want to be. For me, I looked up halfway through my degree when my boy was sleeping 5 hours in a row. And I realized I'm halfway there to graduating. I was about to be a new grad all over again. And I remember being a new grad as a general dentist. I remember the difficulties that I had in clinic, in interactions with sometimes with training staff, with some patients, and just time management, just everything that used to be called soft skills, or they're non-technical skills. And whilst they have improved over time, as a specialist, I felt like somehow there was more on the line. Somehow, because I was at the top of the chain, who am I going to refer to now? I can't refer to another periodontist. And so I felt like I had to step into a bigger role, and I needed to master these skills even more. So I spent my time working on these non-technical skills. Now, an easy example to explain how this works for you is you could have all the best hand skills. You could be the best clinician performing full mouth rehab cases. You could be doing amazing vertical GBRs and the most lifelike composite veneer buildups. But if you can't communicate this clearly to your patients, manage their expectations, manage their stress levels, your own stress levels, their anxiety, if you can't lead your team for an efficient workflow, your hand skills don't really get you anywhere. And if you do somehow get some of those cases, it's going to take a lot more out of you, and you will be heading towards burnout much faster. So it is worth working on these non-technical skills. And I invite you to think about what non-technical skills you are lacking at this stage, because every decision you make today is for your future self. When I was looking and trying to upskill myself in these, I actually couldn't find it quite easily, these skills where they're provided for dental practitioners and not for women dental practitioners. Now, the reason I mention that is because women in leadership are perceived differently. That's not a topic I want to get into today, but that's just something in the back of my mind. And so I wanted to look for something that could cater to what I needed, cater to my experiences in the past, and what I predict could happen in the future. So because it didn't exist, that's why I established the CUSP Collective with women in dentistry, and we focus on providing these skills for women in dentistry so that they can shape the career that they want, so that they can be supported however they want their careers to look. So this was our first conference. It was last year, my final year of the dental perio program. And this year we will be in Melbourne in July. We have lots of other projects coming up in the next 18 months, which will be very exciting, so keep an eye out for that. So as we come close to closing today, I strongly encourage you to seize this opportunity today to make a start. Not tomorrow, not next week, not a better time, today. On your way home today, figure out your why. What drives you? Is it the same today as it was last year? Then take stock of where you're at and where you want to go. Shift your perspective on how things are. By shifting your perspective, you can really challenge any limiting beliefs you have on yourself. And then start working on the gaps in your skill set so you can support your clinical skills. I mentioned earlier, this is our conference in July. You're welcome to attend if you like. There's a QR code there for registrations. I mentioned earlier that I didn't want to go into the nitty-gritty of stress management techniques or, I forgot the other one now, mental well-being exercises, but I do have resources for them. So if you want to know the step-by-steps or the little details and nitty-gritty about it, you can also subscribe on our mailing list, and I will send out monthly newsletters with these supportive resources. I want to leave you with this final quote because I love affirmations and quotes. Please have the courage to seize opportunities and you will find greater freedom on the other side. Thank you for your time today. Have a lovely evening.